In this video, I'm going to show you how you can get started contributing to the Mattermost project by working through an issue. More specifically, an end-to-end integration test, starting from how to pick something to work on, to coding on it, and finally to creating a pull request and iterating on the feedback that you might receive. I'll be using the Gitpod environment in this video, so if you haven't already, please watch the Working with Mattermost and Gitpod video first. My name is Simran. Let's get started. Let's first look for an issue to tackle. There are two great places to start looking for issues to work on. The first of which is that we can generate a list of issues through using these search terms: is open, archived faults, org Mattermost, and two for labels help wanted and up for grabs. And this is the list of issues that gets generated through the search. We can also head over to the Mattermost server repository and visit the Issues tab. At the top of this page are pinned issues which contain portals to finding other issues that are related to those projects respectively. On this page, we can also filter the rest of the issues with these search terms: is issue, is open, and again for two labels, help wanted and up for grabs. For example, I've claimed this end-to-end test issue. Write web app E2E with Cypress. MM T642 attachment does not collapse. To claim an issue to work on, create a comment on the issue. Let's take a closer look at the contents of the issue. First, we have the steps section, what the code in the test should do and/or emulate. Next, we have the expected section, what the results of the test should be. Then, there's the test folder section, which is where the file that holds the test code should be, and the test code arrangement section, which has the starter code for the test. Lastly, we have notes. These are important comments on what to add and what not to add to the test file, plus links to resources for contributing, asking questions, and writing code. Thus, what we're checking with this test is that we're going to make sure that posts with message attachments do not collapse when someone enters the /command collapse. Let's get to coding now. This next step will be familiar if you came from the video where I walked through getting Mattermost repository set up in Gitpod. We're going to visit the Mattermost Gitpod config repository page on GitHub, then set up an environment by clicking the Open in Gitpod badge. Before I delve into coding on the issue that I picked up, what exactly are E2E or end-to-end integration tests? This is where software gets checked from the perspective of the user and goes through various behavioral flows. This is different from unit testing, where software components are tested individually. E2E tests in Mattermost are written using Cypress and Playwright, but for this issue, we will only need to use Cypress. You can find documentation on Cypress and the general process of creating an E2E test on Mattermost's developer documentation. First, let's navigate to the folder where the test file should be located, as specified by the test folder section of the issue. All E2E tests are located in the subfolder E2E, Cypress, Tests, and then Integration. For our tests specifically, we need to go further into the Integrations folder, and then finally into Incoming Webhook. Notice that the files here end with either spec.js or spec.ts. If you need to create a new file to hold your test code, use a name that refers back to the issue that you claimed. For example, something suitable might be attachment does not collapse spec.js. Now that we have our blank file, what do we put in it? Notice that other files have a comment header that includes information on copyright and license, a section explaining how to tag comments in the code appropriately, and 2 lines specifying the stage and group the test belongs to, which will help when running tests. Let's copy this over into our new file, but remove the prod tag in the comment, as specified in the notes section of the issue. Underneath, we can copy into the file the starter code given in the issue. Each test here has a corresponding test case in Zephyr, a test management program Mattermost uses. The text in the describe block corresponds to the folder name in Zephyr, and the text in the it block has the Zephyr test case number as test key and then the test title. Before we write the main body of the test in the it block, it can help to write some setup code before for test isolation. Using a before hook, which will be run once before we start the execution of the first test, or in our case, the only test, let's create and visit a new channel as well as create an incoming webhook. Now, inside the body of the it block, we will write out code that will follow the steps in the issue. The first step is to create an incoming webhook with a message attachment and post it. We already created the webhook in the setup code as well as a channel to put the post in. All we need to do now is specify a payload for the webhook, as in its contents, and call a function to post it. The second step is to view the webhook post that has the attachment. We're already in the channel with the post again from the setup code, so there isn't anything extra to do here. The third step is to type the /command collapse into the channel and press enter. Before doing this, let's check if the Show More button is visible on the webhook post. This is because the message attachment is very large, so it will automatically be condensed. We want to expand it and then make sure that inputting the /command collapse doesn't close it up again. After this check, we call a function to post the /command. The last step is to observe the webhook post, or rather, to check the webhook post making sure that the expected result happened. This means grabbing the message from right before we sent the /command collapse and checking that the button that is showing on the message is Show Less and not Show More. Let's verify now if the test indeed works. In the terminal for the Mattermost web app repository, let's enter the E2E Cypress folder using the cd command, and then run npm I, which will install more dependencies needed for testing. To run all E2E tests, enter npm run cypress:/run in the terminal for the Mattermost web app repository. We can also run tests selectively based on the metadata in the test code, located in that top header comment. For example, if we want to run all of the tests in a specific group, such as those in incoming webhook, the command would be node run_tests.js --group equals @incoming webhook. Finally, we need to make sure that our code is formatted properly. We can check this by running the command npm run check in the terminal for the Mattermost web app repository. If there are any problems, we can either fix them manually in the file itself or use the npm run fix command. This is an important step because if any code is not formatted properly, one of the checks that run when we create a pull request for our branch will fail and may block merging. Since we're done coding, we should open up a pull request, also known as a PR. However, you most likely won't have direct write access to the repository you are working on. Thus, we will need to bring the changes we've made over from the master or main branch to a new branch on our own fork of the repository before we can open a PR. Click the source control icon on the left sidebar. On the panel next to the sidebar, there will be a list of the repositories in the workspace, and under each repository, a list of the files that have changed, if any. Next to the label for Mattermost web app, click the button with the branch name and the source control icon. A drop-down will appear via the command palette. Click the option that says Create New Branch. In the box that appears, name the new branch. A good name idea is to name it after the code that refers to the issue worked on. In this case, this is the test key. So a suitable name for the branch is mm-t642. Then hit enter. Now that the branch has changed, we can commit our changes to it. Back in the source control panel, we can make a commit message in the text box above the commit button. Once a message is made, we can then press the commit button. A modal may appear asking you to first save your changes. We can finally publish our branch to the remote. However, as we will not have access to the main repository itself, we will be prompted to first create a fork. Click on the Publish Branch button on the source control panel. A pop-up will appear asking to make a fork and push to that instead. On the pop-up, select the Create Fork button. During the process of fork creation, there may be a prompt to grant GitHub access to Gitpod's GitHub extension. Once the forking process is done, there will be a couple of pop-ups that appear on Gitpod. One asking if we'd like to periodically run git fetch, which will periodically download content from the remote. Another one asking if we'd like to create a pull request for the branch we're on right inside Gitpod. And finally, one informing that the fork was successfully created. On the successful fork creation pop-up, click the Open on GitHub option. It's time to make our PR. From Gitpod, we land at the fork of the repository we've worked on instead of the main one in the Mattermost organization. Navigate to the branch that was made on the fork. Near the top of the page will be a bar mentioning how many commits ahead and behind this branch is from the master or main branch of the main repository. There will also be two buttons, Contribute and Sync Fork. Click on the Contribute button, and in the drop-down that appears, click on the Open Pull Request button. Now we are presented with another page on GitHub called Open a Pull Request. The first section of the page compares whether the branches, our branch on our fork, which is from the head repository, versus the master or main branch on the main repository, also known as the base repository, can be merged automatically. The second section of the page will show other PRs that are based on our same branch, if any. The third section is where we create a write-up for the pull request, giving it a title and filling out the template. At the bottom of this section is a Create Pull Request button. This button will be faded out until the PR has a title. If you haven't already, give Mattermost's contribution checklist a read. An important takeaway is that you will need to sign the contributor license agreement. This will be another check on the pull request, and if you haven't signed it yet, it will also block merging. Let's take a closer look at what we need to do for the write-up. First, we have a title, and a good title will refer back to the issue, and it should begin with the related Jira or GitHub ticket ID. Next is the summary. This is where we include a description of what the PR does, as well as quality assurance test steps. Then, there is a place to link tickets. Either link the relevant Jira ticket, or if the issue or ticket has a Help Wanted label, link to that GitHub issue. There's also a section for related pull requests to put links to other PRs here if they are related to this PR, as well as a screenshot section to illustrate what our changes have impacted. Finally, the last section in this template is the release note. There are certain conditions that require release notes, but for E2E tests, writing none is sufficient. If you do not end up writing a release note at all, you'll get a warning on your PR. So make sure you don't leave it completely blank. Once a PR is created, we get taken to its page. For example, like this. Below the initial body text of the PR will be a list of commits and other comments. At the end of this list is a checklist which notes the status of reviews required for the pull request and the checks that the pull request must pass, plus a place to write additional comments. If changes need to be made to the PR, return to Gitpod and stage and commit the changes from there onto our same branch, and this will be reflected in GitHub. Now that the PR is up, is there anything left to do? Well, wait for a reviewer to be assigned. Normally, this is handled automatically, but if you need help, feel free to ask for help in the developers channel of the Mattermost community server. After some reviewers are assigned, wait for them to complete a review. If a reviewer requests changes, the PR will disappear from their queue of reviews. Once the concerns have been addressed, re-request a review from any person requesting changes. Avoid force pushing to your branch when you make these changes. Force pushing is the act of overwriting the commit history on the remote with what you have on local. Once all reviewers approve the pull request, they will handle the merging of the code. And that's that. Now you know how to get started with writing your own E2E test, from the very beginning, where we learned how to pick issues, to the very end, where we created a pull request. Happy hacking!